Hey guys, I'm starting the second log of creepypasta reviews. However, last week didn't go very well because A, I listed a pasta that wasn't even a pasta. B, I did not air a video last week. C, I'm airing today on Wednesday opposed to Tuesday. And D, I deliberately did it so I started backwards in the timelines you know what? No one's gonna understand my continuity. Basically, I thought Mr. Creepypasta was going to do an entire month of non-creepypasta videos, in which he did not. And he's been doing regular ones, so I need to catch up, and it's one jumbled mess. Just don't bother to try and figure out the order. Just see it as random pastas. Anyway, without further ado, here's the first pasta. Alright, so the first pasta I'm going to talk about is self-preservation. This is a zombie-like one in which a meteorite lands in America, and basically everyone is fascinated by it for a short time until everyone realizes they are infected and coming down with a disease. Quickly, scientists research and figure out that by absorbing organic material, the virus can be suppressed for a certain amount of time, and that people have been devouring live small insects. However, eventually insects start to run out and do not suppress the virus enough, so people start to devour small animals until ultimately everyone becomes cannibals and starts attacking other people. Basically, this is documented through one person who has barricaded himself inside his house while people bang on his doors begging to just bite off a piece of his arm just a little bit and plead with him. And basically how he has now come under the virus and now is trying to lure someone into his house and documenting that he's sorry for how low his morals have gone. However, he will go to the measures that he must to survive. And this is a kind of an interesting one. It takes, I guess you could say, a zombie-like premise. However, they're not technically zombies. They are people who are pushed to extreme measures. Again, not much more to say, but a pretty depressing one, but a pretty interesting one as well. All right, the next one is 100,000. This is a really short one that talks in second person, saying, one day you will wake up in your room, everything will seem as normal. However, when you go outside, you will realize that there are no animals, no humans. The entire world is intact, but there is not a single sentient life form. And that is when it says, every year there are millions of people who are murdered or go disappearing, but 100,000 of them are unsolved cases in which people just vanish. Where do they go? And this one's pretty interesting. It's kind of a short, annotated thought, not annotated, a short story, a short thing to keep your mind occupied. Not much else to say about this one, but it's kind of interesting. Alright, so the next pasta is Diana. This depicts basically a serial killer who is writing a suicide note to his wife before he kills himself, about how basically every night he went out and killed people, and he would do so in secret, and now he's saying that his wife has the right to know, and he describes the story about how tonight he went out and found a young woman, decided that she would satisfy his thirst for blood, kills her, and then realizes that she is Diana. And then that's when it's revealed that he killed his own wife. And at first, it would make one wonder why he is writing this as if he killed some other woman, and doesn't reveal till the end that he is actually talking to Diana as he lays beside her corpse. Until I kind of figured out that he is so distraught and so upset with himself that he killed his own wife that throughout this entire piece that he's written, he cannot even come to terms with the fact that he killed his own wife, and that he is, I think, in a sense, convinced himself up until the end that it was some other woman he killed, and that he is trying to justify it, that he did not kill his own wife, up until the end where he writes it down. Again, it's kind of interesting to hear the monologuings of a serial killer before he kills himself in agony. Not much more to say, a pretty good one. Next one is Tulpa. This describes the story of a person who basically signs up for a research project where he needs to envision a second self. And from the get go. You can kind of see where this is going. He envisions his second self moving around while he is confined and restrained. He has conversations with his second self, and the more he envisions him, the more real he becomes, until ultimately he is let loose from the research facility but keeps the second self occupied beside him. And basically, he is able to literally talk to himself by using the second self as basically a database for everything he has absorbed and known. He's able to ask him to recover entire novels for him. He has asked him to recite entire memories. He's basically able to talk to his own subconscious and learn things about himself that no other people have. And basically, he starts to cut himself off from the world, just wanting to occupy learning about his own self, until ultimately things start to go astray when the second self recommends that he stays away from people, influences him to punch his best friend in the face, and ultimately he is taken back by the research facility and confined while the second self taunts him. And this is where I feel like the pasta kind of goes a bit downhill, where it kind of takes, it tries to, I think, hint that the second self at one point has literally taken over his body, and now he is now the second self, the entity, the one that does not exist. But then that doesn't really go in that direction. Instead, it states that he has complete control of his body and the second self just haunts him. And then I think it tries to hint at the fact that the second self has now become its own sentient physical being and is now murdering members of his family. I don't really get it at that point. However, I'll let it pass because the build-up and the description makes it seem so real and so believable and so creepy at the same time that something within your own mind can manipulate you. All right, the next one is the cave. This is a pretty long one that describes a bunch of people going in, spelunkers going into an unexplored cave, and when people start to disappear, they start to discover strange cave drawings in which it depicts the jackal, which is a strange entity that really does not get much description, and the writings on the wall kind of depict similar to what's going on, as there are people next to the jackal, and the same number of people are represented by the same number of spelunkers, and once people start to disappear or leave, the same number of people is equal to the same number of people in the drawings they find, until ultimately the main character is alone and discovers the jackal. And the jackal is basically an entity beyond anything within this universe and has psychic abilities and control beyond any other human. And basically the main character manages to overcome him by exposing him to the flare gun he brought that kills it because it cannot comprehend light. And I'm really summing up quickly a really long pasta, but which makes this one so good is the fact that the jackal itself is on the level of Cthulhu in terms of description and mystery. Basically, what made the Cthulhu so good in H.P. Lovecraft's is that he described an entity really beyond anything that humans comprehend or fictionalize, because in fiction is obviously based off reality, in which we kind of project our own thinkings, our own philosophies, our own descriptions of the world into fiction. With the Cthulhu, it was really beyond anything human or anything that humans could create, and that's what made it so amazing, and that's the same thing that they do with the jackal. Its description as just an entity that thinks differently and has psychic control over more than we can comprehend and does not really even is supposed to exist in this universe is what makes this pasta really good. All right, so the next one is a pasta called What is Dead. Basically, a man who has lost his life, has lost everything to live for, and decides that the only way he can keep on living is if he brings her back. He performs a ritual in which he brings her back to life. However, she's not the same. All she does is scream in agony, and he eventually locks her in her basement. Neighbors start to hear about this, and they go into the basement to investigate, and then she eats them. And that's when the howling stops, and that's when he realizes the only thing he can do to suppress her howling is to find live victims. He goes through a whole period where he kidnaps people strolling around in the middle of the night and feeds them to her, until ultimately he decides he needs to leave and get out, and basically writes this as an apology to anyone he has murdered. Again, this one's okay. It kind of describes an interesting story. However, I kind of have to question the stupidity of this person, since presumably this could all have been prevented a long time ago, and he let this keep escalating. He keeps using the excuse, I did it out of fear. Not much more to say. This one's okay, but I'm not particularly fond of it. It doesn't. What I probably would do to improve this is maybe go into more detail about the wife itself and what she could possibly be and what being has possessed her. Other than that, it's an okay one. Not really anything special. All right, so the next one is one called Floaters. God damn it, I thought I was going to write an original pasta by writing about this. Guess someone beat me to it. Anyway, this depicts the idea of, do you know when you close your eyes and you have these small bubbles that form and they stay in one corner of your vision no matter where you turn your eyes? This is basically details a little brother who's discovering this for the first time. And basically what happens is the older brother takes advantage of it and says, oh, you can see ghosts too. And basically he keeps this joke going for a long time and trains his brother to see him until ultimately the brother gorges his own eyes out, to ultimately where the brother feels guilty and asks him why he did so. And he says, I'm sorry, I didn't do it, they did. They don't like when people can see them. And basically it ends on that note, and basically we can presume that the brother trained so hard at seeing what was supposed to be a joke that he actually saw the real thing. It's a short one. It's kind of interesting. Again, doesn't go really much deeper. It's just supposed to be a short, enjoyable pasta. Nothing really more to say about this one. All right, the next one is Monumental Disaster. Okay, this one starts out pretty interesting. It depicts a soldier going to Iraq in 2010, or was it Afghanistan? I think it was Afghanistan. He goes to, the Arabs, and goes to one of the original locations of where scientists predict humans have originated. And basically he goes there and leaves, and ultimately starts to see people in his reflection that look of Arabic descent. And basically he says something along the lines of, I figured it out, that these people have been hunting ever since the beginning of man, and they will gut me, kill me, and allow me to join the hunt. This one has so much potential in the sense that this is a really original concept. Kind of interesting to talk about the Arabs, but it ends too shortly, doesn't give us enough detail, and it's kind of interesting, but I feel like it kind of ends too quickly without really enough time for build-up or suspense.